She smirked when she slid the eviction papers across the table, convinced she'd won, convinced I was just another homeowner she could crush. What she didn't know was that every forged signature, every fake stamp, every lie she told was about to land on the desk of the one judge she never expected, my wife. If you love jaw-dropping courtroom twists, corrupt HOA takedowns, and endings so satisfying they feel illegal, hit subscribe right now, because this story proves karma doesn't knock, it kicks the door down. The first time I met Linda Carver, she stood on my driveway like she owned the sun, the street, and my future, clipboard tucked under her arm, lips curled into a smile that never reached her eyes, introducing herself as president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, and before I could even offer her a bottle of water she informed me I was in violation of subsection 14B for having a work truck visible after 6 p.m., which was ironic because it was 5:42 and the truck belonged to the electrician rewiring my garage after a storm. But Linda didn't care about facts, she cared about power, and over the next 6 months she wielded it with surgical cruelty, fining us for grass half an inch too tall, for trash cans visible from the street for 13 minutes past pickup, for a basketball hoop my son rolled out and back in within the same afternoon, each fine escalating, each letter more threatening, until one evening an envelope appeared taped to our door stamped eviction notice in aggressive red letters, claiming we were in breach of HOA covenants and had 30 days to vacate or face legal action, my wife Sarah reading it silently at the kitchen table, her expression unreadable, while our kids hovered nearby sensing something was wrong. And when I started to rant about Linda's insanity, Sarah simply said, "Let me see the paperwork," because Sarah has always had that calm, surgical way of responding to chaos, the way she did years ago in law school when professors tried to rattle her, the way she did later as she climbed the judicial ladder without ever advertising it to the neighborhood, and as she read, her eyebrows knit together, not in fear but in curiosity, because the document was wrong, very wrong, the font inconsistent, the county seal slightly distorted, the signature block bearing the name of a clerk Sarah personally knew but with a signature that leaned the wrong way, and when she flipped to the final page her lips pressed into a thin line, because the judge's authorization stamp was not just fake, it was laughably fake to anyone who actually worked in the system, and that's when she looked up at me and said, "These papers are forged," a sentence that should have brought relief but instead ignited a slow, dangerous anger in my chest, because forging eviction papers isn't just HOA bullying, it's a felony. And the next morning I marched to the HOA office only to be met by Linda's assistant telling me smugly that the board would not be meeting with me, that legal action was already underway, and that further communication should be directed through their attorney, which turned out to be a small firm notorious for rubber stamping HOA intimidation. So we waited, quietly, letting Linda think her plan was working, letting her file her case in county court, never once correcting her assumption that we were just another family she could scare into selling, never once telling anyone in Willow Creek that Sarah was not just a lawyer but a sitting judge, because judges don't announce themselves, they let the gavel speak. And when the notice for the hearing arrived, Sarah opened it, scanned the docket number, and froze, because the case had been randomly assigned, by the blind rotation system, to her courtroom, and for a long moment we just stared at each other, the weight of the irony hanging between us, Sarah immediately insisting she would disclose the conflict and recuse herself if necessary, because integrity is the spine of justice. But as she dug deeper, she realized something important. The case wasn't against us personally, it was the HOA seeking enforcement of eviction based on allegedly fraudulent documents they themselves had submitted, and Sarah was not the presiding judge on the enforcement hearing itself but on a preliminary review of the filings for authenticity and jurisdiction, a procedural step Linda clearly hadn't bothered to understand, because she assumed judges were interchangeable obstacles, not professionals who read every line. And on the day of the hearing I sat quietly in the back of the courtroom while Linda strutted in wearing a beige power suit, whispering loudly to her attorney about how these homeowners always fold, her confidence peaking when Sarah took the bench, because Linda didn't recognize her, not in the robe, not with her hair pulled back, not elevated above the room where ego shrinks and truth echoes. And when Sarah began, her voice calm and precise, Linda leaned over to her lawyer and smirked, unaware that every word Sarah spoke was a scalpel, methodically dissecting the paperwork, asking the HOA attorney to confirm the source of the eviction notice, the method of service, the authority under which it was issued, and as the lawyer stumbled through vague answers, Sarah held up the document and asked a single question that changed the air in the room. "Can you explain why this court seal does not match the official county seal on file?" And Linda's smirk faltered, her attorney blinking, asking for a moment, flipping through his folder, before mumbling something about an administrative error, which only prompted Sarah to ask why the clerk's signature belonged to someone who had been on medical leave the week the document was allegedly signed. And now the courtroom was silent, the kind of silence that swallows arrogance whole. Linda's face draining of color as Sarah continued, noting discrepancies in font licensing, timestamp metadata, and improper service protocols, each detail landing like a hammer, until finally Sarah looked directly at Linda and asked her to stand, and when Linda did, shaking slightly, Sarah delivered the line that would ripple through Willow Creek for years. Ms. Carver, do you understand that submitting forged legal documents to this court constitutes fraud and may result in criminal referral? And in that moment Linda finally looked at me, recognition flickering, her mouth opening as if to speak my name, only for Sarah to cut her off, reminding her that defendants do not speak out of turn, ordering the HOA's filings stricken from the record, dismissing the eviction attempt with prejudice, and formally referring the matter to the district attorney for investigation, the gavel striking once, clean and final, and outside the courtroom Linda collapsed onto a bench, her attorney already distancing himself, while neighbors who had come to watch whispered in disbelief, phones buzzing, the story spreading faster than any HOA fine ever had, and over the following weeks the truth unraveled like a cheap sweater, revealing that Linda had been forging notices not just to us but to at least 4 other homeowners, targeting those she disliked or thought would cave, the HOA board scrambling to claim ignorance, emergency meetings called, resignations tendered, Linda removed as president before charges were even filed, though that didn't stop the DA from pursuing the case, resulting in probation, restitution, and a permanent stain on her record, while Willow Creek Estates underwent a full audit, rewriting its bylaws, instituting oversight, and for the first time in years homeowners slept without fear of arbitrary punishment. And one evening as Sarah and I sat on the porch watching our kids ride bikes under streetlights we'd almost been forced to leave behind, she squeezed my hand and said quietly, "Power only works when people think no one is watching," and I realized then that Linda's greatest mistake wasn't faking eviction papers, it was assuming the system was just a prop she could manipulate, never imagining that justice might be sitting across the dinner table, folding laundry, waiting patiently for the truth to step into her courtroom.